Chicago, Chicago.
Now, John Cass.
89 WKRS.
Mid-morning, 89 WLS, John Cass, Lauren Cohn. Lauren, what difference does it make?
What difference does it make,
Lauren?
I couldn't sleep last night. I kept thinking about that. What difference does it make?
It applies to everything, but does it apply to what Leon Panetta just announced yesterday, in which the White House will formally announce women in combat?
I think it's great.
Ladies.
I think it's great.
A rifle company of women running through the hills of Afghanistan, chasing the Taliban down.
Women currently make up 14% of the 1.5 million active personnel. Now this is going to open up another 200,000 plus jobs for women.
I think, of course, and stepping on landmines and so forth. Of course, this was released into the news cycle by an alert from the Pentagon right when the networks were cutting their Hillary Clinton Benghazi footage. And now we pivoted from that to strong Hillary to strong women in the military. And now we're pivoting back again to John Kerry. The Hillary's replacement is up on the Hill. So it's like, forget that Benghazi stuff, whatever that meant. Forget it. But
they're trying to redirect our attention, John?
Right. And we might, who knows? How does that work with the Pavlov and the dog and the meat powder and the bell? But in the meantime, women in combat, I'm all for it.
And a lot of people are for it, but there are some critics who don't think that women actually have the same physical capabilities as men.
Of course, men can't say that because I've been trained. I grew up watching Phil Donahue on TV, and Alan Alda, so I know exactly what I'm supposed to say and not say. And you know me, Mr. Politically Correct Liberal that I am.
Well, women, as a woman, we tend to think we can do anything a man can do. And whether that's any type of job.
Like step on landmines, fight hand-to-hand in a ditch.
Be a fighter pilot.
Well, women are fighter pilots.
Right, flying a Black Hawk.
Right. So I don't know. Is it legit or not? Is this a game or not? Or isn't it about time that we let women into the combat infantry, humping, packs up and down hills, getting trench foot and all sorts of other nice things? We're taking calls, 591-8900 at WLS. This is John Cass and Lauren Cohn. Anthony from Roselle. Anthony, be on your good behavior.
Yeah, as far as women are, I think women can handle it because there's so many high-tech weaponry that I think women on the front line could even handle that type of thing. They can handle computers just as well as a man. As far as doing stuff where they're, a little weaker on the human side or on the muscle side of it, even the women are strong enough to probably handle what's out there for them, and the way they design weaponry is they're capable of handling the weapons that we design.
Well, we do know that women can run every bit as far as a man, maybe farther, that they have certain long-term endurance issues that are even that might be, profound and in terms of a benefit. And how much strength does it take to pull a trigger? If you're a sniper, I don't know, can women be good snipers, stuff like that?
I was listening to a good interview last night on the Fox News, John, that talked about this Marine infantry training and how there were 2 women in the entire group that went through it, and both of them had to step out of it because they physically couldn't do it. And it was interesting to hear the women talk about who want to do this, but how they physically and mentally thought they could do it, and then they had some trouble.
Well, let's hear it.
There was a time 5 years ago where I joined the Marine Corps, and I thought, heck, I'm strong. I'm one of the best. I can serve in the infantry. This last deployment really hit it home for me. I went from breaking school records to being broken in a matter of short amount of time. I left a 7-month deployment, 17 pounds lighter. I had muscle atrophy. I stopped producing estrogen, which for me caused me to have infertility. And I was only doing a portion of what my infantry brethren were doing. My concern is that there's a lot of gender-specific medical conditions that we haven't even begun to identify, and that there's going to be a cost associated to that.
And just so people know who that was Captain Kate Petrino. She was in the interview on Fox News last night, but that was an interview she did before that, based upon the book that she wrote, sort of
she
recounting.
did an op-ed piece, "We Are Not All Created Equal. Get over it."
Right.
And that's what the title of the
right.
piece was. Yeah, okay. So now that Obama has, pivoted us away from Hillary and towards strong women again, it's very interesting. Get the meat powder, get the bell. Come on, dog, start salivating, because this is what we do. At that point now, we're at that point now, does Captain Petrino have to change her views? Will there be political pressure on women in the military to change their views and now be supportive of a policy they might not agree with? And then what happens to standards? What happens to, do we lower standards for women, or do we call them case specific? And also, Lauren, will we have a bunch of politicians, just like, when they wanted to fight terrorism, now we're going to have politicians telling people who've never been in the military, telling the military what to do.
Yeah, we have more callers. I don't know either. We have more callers on this, though, John.
Well, listen, we're going to be back to your calls, Lauren Cohen and I, 591-8900, or text us at WLSAMJJ to 68683. Lauren, John, we're back in a minute after the break. The 89 WLS box office opens every Thursday, giving you a chance to win tickets to an upcoming show or event. Later today, we'll have your chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to Sox Fest this Saturday at the Palmer House Hilton. For more info, go to WLSAM.com. Sox Fest. I can't think of anything nicer except for talking, as a Sox fan, except for talking to readers on this, listeners on the subject. Women in combat, I guess we're going to do it. Jay in DeKalb, you're on with Lauren Cohn and John Cass.
Hey, John, it's great talking to you guys. I was just going to tell you, anybody can get through training, and what they do is they adjust training. I was the XO down at the Airborne Department at Fort Benning.
Tell us what that means, because some of us don't know. You were the executive officer. Right?
Everybody can do, as far, assistant company commander, everybody can do any kind of training and get through any kind of training. And what they do is they lower the standards. And you see the guys running on the track, and a half a block behind them are the girls running on the track. So the stuff is adjusted so anybody can graduate. Well, the thing is, once you get in a situation when you're in a unit, all that training doesn't matter. It's whoever's the strongest, but the readiness is the whole key. And when I was over for Bosnia operation, we had the readiness standards drop because there were so many pregnancies. Because when you mix guys and girls together in a unit, things happen. And we had so many people that were pregnant, and they had to get more, people back in the States to let the husbands and the wives know that these people were all getting pregnant and coming home. And there's so many more things.
Wait a minute. You mean the officers have to get involved, tell Lauren, what about that? You have to tell the husband, Mr. Smith, your wife's coming home and she's bringing a package? What do you say?
The fathers and the wives and the husbands back home that have left ones to go off to wherever. You got so many people being pregnant over there because you mix men and women in the same units. The readiness is dropping like a rock because everybody talks about everybody can do training. It's no problem. Well, how many people are getting pregnant over there that aren't married? You know what I mean?
So you're saying that's deterring the mission.
Right. And the mission, and once they're pregnant, they had to institute policies where you were going to get Article 15 if you became pregnant. But that doesn't stop anything.
What is that, Article 15?
It's like getting a ticket or a citation, you know what I mean? In the military, it can ruin your record. You can't get re-enlisted.
Wait, you get cited for being pregnant?
Well, because your readiness. You're not ready. You can't produce. You can't be on the front line if you're pregnant.
Right.
Huh.
That's interesting.
You know what I mean? Very interesting.
Yeah,
thanks a lot, Jay.
Things that people don't have a clue. Thank you guys very much. You're doing great.
Thanks for your service, Jay, and thanks for calling in. That's got to be, you have to run a combat operation with your men and women, your soldiers, and you also have to write letters home and play Dr. Phil
right.
with the husband who's at home with the kids.
But it brings up an interesting point when we just heard Captain Petrino talk about how her training, she was producing so much testosterone, not enough estrogen, that she said that she became infertile for a period of time, and that was a concern.
She was going through that, real high stress, combat,
intense
officer thing in the but who knows? I mean, I don't know. The guy's home, the husband's home with the kids. The wife is fighting the Taliban. She gets pregnant. I mean, this is a new day, and I'm just getting all used to all this. Okay, listen, we have Michael on I-90. Michael.
Hey, John and Lauren, how you guys doing today?
Quickly, Michael, I want to hear it, but go on.
Well, your last caller raised a lot of good points about women in the military, and I think the Israelis have had women in for a long time. But something a lot of people forget is that one of the most, if not the most prolific sniper in history was a Russian woman that had over 400 confirmed kills.
Do you know her name?
I don't. I can't remember her name. It's a Russian name, and it's not coming to me right now, and unfortunately I'm driving, so I can't
All right.
Google it.
Well, don't Google while you're driving. Just make sure you're listening. Thanks for calling, and make sure you're listening to 89 WLS. Any of you with the name of their Russian killer woman, we want to hear it.
Yeah, join our conversation.
591-8900. This is John Cass and Lauren Cohn. Back after this.
When you want Chicago's classic hits, turn to 94.7 WLS. For traffic and weather info, tune in to 890 AM WLS for traffic and weather first on the fives when you need it most.
Hello, everybody. John Cass, Lauren Cohn, 89 WLS.
Yeah, we just had that caller ask us about the Russian sniper who had, a record number.
Yeah.
Well, so this text from 847, according to Wikipedia, Ludmila Pavlichenko, 309 confirmed kills. Ludmila Pavlichenko.
309 confirmed kills, and...
You don't want to be Pavlichenko'd.
Can you imagine, and then later, when she was, with the grandkids going, and now I want you to eat this soup? Or because I killed 309 of our enemies.
That's when she's Grandma Pavlichenko.
Grandma Pavlichenko with the finger.
It's really not Grandma Pavlichenko.
When she gives you the finger, you're done.
You don't mess with the Pavlichenko.
You don't even hear it coming. It's like a song, definitely. Well, when we come back, Lauren, what are we going to do? We're going to talk about what?
Does it make a difference?
Does it make a difference? I don't know. Does it make a difference?
Does it really matter?
Does it really matter? Does it make a difference?
What happened to Hillary
Clinton?
Clinton?
At this point, does it make?
Does it make a difference?
What happened to Hillary Clinton yesterday?
You know what? Our listeners are going to tell us at 591-8900. We're also going to have Catherine Herridge from Fox News, great reporter there who's been doing excellent work, as everyone knows that's been listening to this 9 to 11 shift since the beginning of Benghazi with Jake, me, and now you, that we've been focusing on Benghazi and the 4 who died. And she'll help us sort these things out. Catherine Herridge, and then what difference does it make? And the politics of
and where do we go from here with the State Department?
John Cass, Lauren Cohn, 89 WLS. Back after this.
Difference at this point does it make?
Have a story we need to know about? Call the 89 WLS News Tip Hotline at 312-236-0507.
Good mid-morning, Chicago. This is 89 WLS. John Cass, Lauren Cohn. We're taking your calls 591-8900 and your text at WSAMJJ to 68683. Lauren, what does it matter? What did you say? What the heck does it matter?
What difference does it make?
What difference
at this point does it make?
Okay, we're talking about...
Hillary Clinton's out, John Kerry's in.
Right. Women in combat. Let's pivot away. Forget those 4 men who died in Benghazi. So we had our little Benghazi moment nationally. Leon Panetta puts out the advisory right when the evening news talk shows were getting ready on Benghazi. He puts it out. We're going to have women in combat and infantry. Now we have all those stories crowding the earlier story, and then Leon Panetta, and now we have Mr. Kerry, Senator Kerry, up ahead. But let's not forget Benghazi, and we have a guest who knows and has been doing some amazing work from the beginning on this, just outstanding work. One of my favorite reporters in television. Catherine, are you here?
I am. I'm sorry, I'm riveted by the Kerry testimony. Just for a moment there. But thank you for the kind introduction. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, the Kerry thing is really amazing, isn't it? But could we go back to yesterday and what happened? What was accomplished for the American people yesterday?
Well, what we found out yesterday is that for Mrs. Clinton, though she portrayed a very sympathetic side when she talked about the families who she had comforted after the Benghazi attack, doesn't care. Why does it matter how they died? And the reason it matters is that there are really two things that the U.S. government can do for those families now. One is to prosecute the people responsible. And based on my reporting, that investigation has stalled out. And number two, we can honor these people in their deaths with the facts of what happened. But based on the testimony yesterday, that did not seem to be of much consequence to Mrs. Clinton.
And that's my biggest question, Catherine, is why can't we hear from the witnesses and the people that were there?
Well, that's a question for the State Department. We were able to contact just a handful of people who were on one of those evacuation flights, but they told us very specifically that they were instructed not to discuss it. I think one of the reasons they were told that, and it's not a nefarious reason, which is that there is sensitive information in terms of the procedures and the practices when you do an emergency evacuation. And this situation was even more so because there was equal anxiety about the attack at the consulate as well as the exposure of the depth and breadth of the CIA presence at the annex in Benghazi. Remember, it was a two-wave attack. It was at the consulate and also at the annex. So I appreciate that from a reporting perspective because I've seen this happen in the past. But again, it doesn't allow us to have a full picture of what happened. And I was struck by the fact that not a single member of Congress asked the simplest of questions, which is, where did the story of the anti-Islam video come from in the first place? Whose idea was that?
Was that David Axelrod's?
Well, I mean, it's the simplest of questions.
Right.
Mrs. Clinton took the position yesterday that it was very confusing right after the attack and that the fog of war made it hard to know what had happened. But Fox News Channel interviewed the head of the House Intelligence Committee, Mike Rogers, who was also receiving real-time information on the attack. And less than 24 hours after the attack, he told us that it was a coordinated, premeditated, commando-style military attack.
Here's another thing I didn't understand, and that was the fact that Mrs. Clinton said that she knew about the attack over the summer, but she had never received any cables, anything in writing from Ambassador Stevens that they needed support. How is that possible?
Her position was that any request for security she never reviewed or denied. And with very pointed questioning, she also claimed that when her office was sent a cable summarizing an emergency meeting in August where her people on the ground and the CIA said that consulate could not defend against a coordinated attack, she said she never saw it. Never saw it. And she could not say who saw it. This is clearly an effort to, put a lid on responsibility below her, not involving her. And that was I'm so glad you raised that point because that was the point at which her story started to shift. She said, well, I did know about some events at the consulate, and I did know about the improvised explosive device that blew an 8-foot wide gap in the wall of our concrete wall of the consulate. I did know about that and the repairs there. Yet, what she wants us to believe is that in spite of all of this information, they failed to act, which one could argue is negligence at the very least.
What about what happened in the White House, Catherine?
Well, we got a little bit more detail yesterday on the White House involvement. The two things that jumped out at me is that Mrs. Clinton confirmed that her primary point of contact in the White House was the National Security Advisor, Tom Donilon. And then she also confirmed that she did not speak to the president until much later in the evening. It's not clear whether that was before or after the CIA annex was attacked in the second wave. So we now know that there was about a 5-hour window where the White House was deeply involved in what was happening with the consulate. And this issue with Tom Donnell is important because when Mrs. Clinton did not go on the Sunday talk show September 16th and they chose Ambassador Rice, it would have made more sense to have Tom Donnellan go on those shows, or John Brennan, the counterterrorism advisor, or James Clapper, the head of the intelligence community, or the CIA director, David Petraeus. But they, in fact, tapped Susan Rice. And the president defended her later by saying, don't attack her because she had nothing to do with Benghazi. So that was a choice where Rice was seen as politically reliable, not someone who was necessarily in the loop on the information.
So what we have is a country that we looked at Hillary and her, she did her theatrics, and we review it. Most people are reviewing it as theatrics, except for you, Catherine. And I want to thank you very much.
I wouldn't characterize it that way. I think that her statements were sincere, but there were inconsistencies, and what came through to me is that she was very careful to thread the needle.
Thank you,
Catherine. And she had the advantage of doing that because she spoke last.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
We have to go. I have to speak last now, too. Goodbye.
No, I love it when you
All
speak
right.
last. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
89 WLS, John Cass, Lauren Cohn, back with your calls after this.
89 WLS.
In order to give them the facilities and support they need a Marine house. They need to be very close to the embassy because if you saw the recent movie Argo, you saw the Marines in there, destroying the classified material when the mob was outside in Tehran. They are experts at that. They are people that are totally relied on.
Yeah, you're an expert too, Mrs. Clinton, in not answering the questions. I'm sorry, what did you just say?
Ben Affleck really appreciated the Argo reference.
Yeah, because that's how you discuss foreign policy.
And that's how he brought back his career. But yeah. Why was she bringing up Argo? What happened there?
I don't know. But that's what you do. You talk about movies when you're dealing with serious foreign policy issues. It was depressing, but we're news people, so you don't have to deal with it. And one thing I've seen over the past day, they went from Benghazi testimony to releasing the news that women will fight in the infantry.
Mm-hmm.
And that pivoted everybody away overnight. You got the Manti Te'o thing, and now we have John Kerry with the great senatorial hair, that Heinz 57 hair of his.
He does have good hair.
He has awesome hair, John Kerry, and that jaw, too, which you would think it suggests strength of character. And so we pivot away from the 4 Americans killed in Benghazi. Mike in Riverside, you got a minute.
Good morning. How are you?
Go ahead, Mikey.
Hey, first of all, thank you so much for having Catherine Herridge on. She's just been a pit bull on this story, and as she has been on other stories. I just wish that she would have been the one sitting in the Senate chambers and the House chambers yesterday grilling Mrs. Clinton. That would have been such a delight.
I think a lot of people were disappointed with the questioning yesterday. Felt it was a little bit more political than getting the facts or the questions we all wanted answered.
I thought some people ask questions, and when they, the Democrats are going to protect her, like that oozing, unctuous Senator Durbin. Listen, we got to go, Mike, but when we come back, we'll have more after this. John Cass, Lauren Cohn, 89 WLS.
Friday morning with Bruce Wolf and Dan Proft on 89 WLS. Hoda from the 4th hour of the Today Show.
And in order of importance, White Sox General Manager Rick Hahn and Indiana Governor Mike Pence.
Friday morning, Bruce Wolf, Dan Proft, 89 WLS.
John Cass, Lauren Cohn, 89 WLS. I want you to hear one guy who spoke clearly to Hillary Clinton yesterday. Rand Paul.
Review board finds 64 different things that we can change. A lot of them are common sense and should be done, but the question is, it's a failure of leadership that they weren't done in advance, and 4 lives were cost because of this. I'm glad that you're accepting responsibility. I think that ultimately with your leaving, you accept the culpability for the worst tragedy since 9/11. And I really mean that. Had I been president at the time and I found that you did not read the cables from Benghazi, you did not read the cables from Ambassador Stevens, I would have relieved you of your post. I think it's inexcusable.
You're fired.
Lauren, is she fired?
She's gone. Where is she today? What's she doing? Is she cleaning out her desk?
Well, we're cleaning out this segment. John Cass, Lauren Cohn, 89 WLS. More after this.
One station making history every day. The best coverage.
The president and vice president taking their mandated January 20th oaths of office this morning.
I did it. I ended that conversation by saying simply this. My Lene died on September 12th.
The complete story.
The flu season once again